Hello everyone, and welcome to another Pyro Gaming video. I've done Titans, I've done Hunters, let's talk about Warlocks. Admittedly, I play my Warlock the least out of the three characters. This is my least favorite, but still, I feel like I have some fun with Warlock aside from that god-awful jump it has. So let's start with our Crucible Loadout here. I don't play a lot of Crucible, but when I do, I typically run the same loadout each time. So this is my Crucible armor. I build around sniping and sidearming. So a lot of enhanced unflinching rifle, enhanced sniper rifle loader, sniper rifle targeting, sniper scavenger, sidearm scavenger, remote connection, which gives you super energy back on sniper kills, and so on. For the power weapon, I don't pick up power ammo in PvP all that often, so I just throw on whatever machine gun I happen to have. For the subclass, I typically do run Attunement of Flame, which is Bottom Tree Dawnblade. Mostly for this, Everlasting Fire. Killing an enemy with Daybreak extends its duration. Might as well try to get more out of it. As far as exotics that I use in the Crucible, I'm typically either going to run Ophidian Aspects, which improves weapon speed, reload, and melee range, or I'm going to run something like Transversives, where I can just keep sprinting around and it reloads my weapons. I feel like both of those are really good. That's typically what I'm going to use. Occasionally, I will run something like Nezarec Sin if I'm using something like Recluse in PvP, but that's pretty rare. So that's about it for Crucible. Let's get back to my normal PvE loadout here. Swap all this back. Now, as I've said in my other two videos for Titans and Hunters, I'm sick of this loadout. Izanagi's, Recluse, and Wendigo. I'm over it, man. Like, I'm tired of using that, so I do mix up things quite a bit. So what I'm going to do now is show you guys my Nightfall loadouts that I will use just to kind of mix things up some. Okay, so, oops, went too far. So, I typically run Well of Radiance if I'm doing a 980 Nightfall. Unless somebody else on my team is also a Warlock and they want to run Well, then I will switch to Devoured Voidwalker. And every now and then, just to mix things up, I will also do Chaos Reach. Just because, why not? So as far as loadouts, this is my typical loadout. This is the one that I'm running most of the time in the 980 Nightfalls. If somebody else on my team is running Lunafactions and I don't have to run it, I will run either Transversives or I will run something like Skull of Dire Ahamkara if I'm doing Voidwalker and I want to build around my Nova Bomb. Or if I do want to run Well and I want to stay on that but we don't need Lunas, I will run something like Phoenix Protocol. It's also really good. But, yeah, that's about that. I mean, every now and then I'll throw on Sun Bracers. It just depends. If there's going to be a lot of solar shields and I don't feel like running a solar weapon, then I will throw on Sun Bracers in a 980 Nightfall. If I'm running Dawnblade, it can be good sometimes. But for the weapons, it's typically going to be Nameless Midnight because it has Anti-Barrier Ranger, and every 980 Nightfall has Barrier Champions. I will run Divinity if my other two teammates are running something like Izanagi's. It just makes clapping those champions a little bit easier. And Divinity also has Disruption, which is great for Overload champions. If there's Overload champions, I'm almost 100% going to run Divinity and Nameless Midnight. For the power weapon, this is kind of a flex weapon. If I want to go for a rainbow build, is what I call it. I have Solar, I have Arc, I have Void. If we're going to have all three of those shield types in that particular Nightfall that week, this is what I will run. If it's more focused on arc shields, I will run a 21%. If it's more focused on solar shields, I will run my Solar Edgewise. Other than that, it is pretty cut and dry. I can mix it up sometimes. If I am going to need more solar energy, then I might run something like my Oxygen here, and then up here run something for DPS. So that would be the Izanagi's, even though I hate it. It is really good against champions. But if I don't feel like running that, I could do something like a Tranquility Sniper Rifle, and then down here, run something like an Anarchy. Now, Anarchy is great against champions because you can shoot 2 shots on the ground near the champion, and then 1 shot into the champion itself, and it will just keep breaking the shield without you actually having to use anti-barrier rounds. It's actually really cool. This is a really easy way to solo champions. So that is something that I will run. I will mix it up further, again, depending on the elements, depending on the boss. There's a lot of things here. If the boss is going to be really far away, so something like Pyramidion, if I don't have anything for DPS up here, then I might run something like a Love and Death, because it has full court. But if it's going to be a lot of void shields, and I know the boss is going to be real close, like something like Tree of Probabilities, then I can run something like Swarm of the Raven because it has void and does a lot of damage up close. So those are my basic, most of the time, Nightfall loadouts. I will mix it up every now and then. Maybe I run something like this, you know? I run something like a Nameless Midnight, Loaded Question, Xenophage. Xenophage is really good against any orange bars. It's great. Loaded Question is just all around really solid. So that's what I typically run there. Now, depending on the modifiers, I might build around my power weapon. If I'm running something like this, where I'm going to be crutching Xenophage, then I'm definitely going to want something like Heavy Ammo Finder on my helmet and Power Ammo Scavenger on my boots. Alternatively, if I'm going to go with Xenophage and I'm building around that power build, then I might want something like Arc for my chest piece because I can have double machine gun reserves, and instead of only carrying 28 rounds, I can now carry, I think it's 34 if you have double down perks. So just little things like that I keep in mind. Let's transition from the Nightfalls to Nightmare Hunts. I do a lot of Nightmare Hunts because I think that they're fun, and I do them on Master Difficulty, 980. Whenever I'm doing Nightmare Hunts, this is 99% of the time my loadout. Depending on which boss it is, I will swap between Voidwalker and Dawnblade. If I do Voidwalker, it is going to be that bottom tree with Devour because it's a lot of fun. You don't have to kill the champions in the Nightmare Hunts. It's not like the Nightfalls where it influences your rewards. So I don't care about the champions. I don't care about the perks for the champions to take down their shields. That's why I run my Better Devils, my Loaded Question, and my Xenophage. For this one, I typically will run Lunafaction Boots because it's a lot easier to throw down a well and then reload this thing as opposed to just reloading this thing super, super slow. I will also run Ophidian Aspects if I'm building around this for that exact same reason. If I am building around straight up Nova Bomb, then I do think that Skull of Dire Ahamkara is going to be the best bet. As much as it's been nerfed, I do think it's the best bet. Plus, it's got this Riven ornament, so I mean, why not run it? It looks funny. It looks silly. If I want to mix it up and run something like, what is this called? Chaos Reach, then Geomag is going to be the play, at least in my opinion. If I'm going to do, this is for bosses for me. This down here I will use for general ad clear, and if I'm building around an Arc subclass ad clear, then I will use Storm Dancer's Brace. Enemies you defeat with Storm Trance increase the damage you deal with Storm Trance. So if you can get like 5 kills with your Storm Trance, then I think you're doing like 50% more damage with it is what it equates to. It's actually really good. I would definitely recommend trying it out. So those are my Nightmare loadouts. Now let's talk about the raid. So when I start Garden of Salvation, for the first 2 encounters, I'm running this. This really is my favorite loadout right now. When I get to the first boss, which is the 3rd encounter, the Consecrated Mind, then I'm going to switch to this, just because it is so fucking good for that encounter. The only thing that I'm going to change here is every now and then, I might run Swarm of the Raven. If I don't feel like I'm going to get a lot of orbs from this, or for this, for my teammates, I'll swap to Swarm of the Raven, because I'm typically always on the Gambit team, and Void for Minotaur shields. It's really good. So I'll swap to that, but I'm DPSing the boss with Izanagi's Burden every time. And if we have another Dawnblade that's running well, then I will stick with Devour. But if I'm that Dawnblade and I'm running well, then I gotta put on the Lunafactions and I gotta be the bot. You know, the Warlock bot. But yeah, that's my go-to loadout for the Consecrated Mine. Now, I do have a firing line thing here, but I don't like using that against the Consecrated Mine, because the way that fight is, with your teammates constantly walking down the hallway, it's really hard to pay attention to where they are and make sure that you're getting the full effects of firing line. And if you're not, you just have a basic-ass sniper. So that's why I go with Izanagi's there. Now, when I get to the final boss, I will run this exact same loadout that you see here, but I will also... I didn't switch all my gear. So when I get to the final boss, that's typically when I do put on this armor set. I don't care much for this armor set, other than the fact it has Enhanced Relay Defender, and that's why I switched to it at the end. Because my team usually does the single break method, where we break a shield one time and then stack up by the relay, get as much Enhanced Relay Defender that we can, and do as much DPS as we can in a much shorter period of time. So Izanagi's is great for that, but with the enhanced relay defender, because your teammates are all going to be so close together, Tranquility is going to be really good, and so is something like Love and Death. Now, Love and Death has full court, so the way that this damage phase would look is like this. We break his shield, we all meet up at the relay defender, he goes up in the air, I fire 5 shots out of this as quickly as I can, swap to that, unload all 5 rounds of this as quickly as I can, swap back to this, see if I can get 5 more rounds out of it because it has auto-loading holster and it should be reloaded by the time I swap back. Usually, by then, damage phase is over. And if we 1-phase them, we 1-phase them. If we 2-phase them, we 2-phase them. I do stick with the Recluse if I'm going to be doing the Gambit team and collecting motes on the little islands because it's just so good at it. It's really good at its job, but if I am running double legendaries here, Sunshot is also really fun to use in the islands as well because you can chain the explosions all over the place. So that is my raid loadout. And speaking of Sunshot, this loadout that you see right here, I will run around like just in patrol and strikes and stuff like that. I'll run around with this loadout quite a bit. So now let's talk about some weapon combinations that I will use, just to mix things up, just to be different. So as a replacement for the Recluse, I'm a big fan of hand cannons. I typically either run Sunshot, Nation of Beasts, or Kindled Orchid. Nation of Beasts is one of my favorite weapons right now. I also will run Perfect Paradox. I have one here that has Trench Barrel or 1-2 Punch and Field Prep, so it's a lot of fun. I will use that quite a bit in PvE. And then down here, just to mix things up, I might run Sleeper. I might run Anarchy. I might run Swarm of the Raven. I might run a Sword if I want to be silly. I'm actually really excited to try out the sword changes coming next season. But just to mix things up, I'll throw any one of these things on just to be different. This right here is another really good loadout. Anarchy's a lot of fun. Loaded Question's a lot of fun. Better Devil's a lot of fun. I have this Stringer here with Outlaw Rampage. I use it quite a bit. I have this Go Figure with Outlaw Rampage. I use it quite a bit. This is just a general all-around workhorse weapon. A Meanie loadout that I like to use. I don't have one on me, but I'll put a Tractor Cannon on down here. And it is currently disabled, but Winter's Guile with the double 1-2 punch build and a Tractor Cannon is a lot of fun. I would recommend trying it out if these things come back anytime soon. I will use Chromatic Fire. I don't have one on me right now, but I will use it a lot with Ace of Spades because it's silly, having the double explosions. It's a lot of fun. Let's see, what else? Oh, this guy right here. This is a pretty good guy for DPS. If you have a 140 archetype sniper with something like Triple Tap and Field Prep, I can actually fire this thing like 30 times on full ammo. It's really ridiculous. With Triple Tap, I fire 10 times before I have to reload, and I keep extending that because I have Field Prep and it's got a lot of ammo reserves. I'll use this on bosses that have big DPS windows. So think something like Insurrection Prime. Think something like maybe even Morgath. I haven't used it on him, but he might be pretty good. But yeah, think of this as like a Darcy Light. It's a lot of fun. I would definitely recommend trying to get a 140 archetype sniper and trying it out. But that's about it, man. The only thing that I have left to talk about here is my class items. I like to have my class items ready to go. One thing that I didn't mention in the Nightfall is I run Special Finisher a lot. So anyway, my class items here. I always like to have my armaments and my barrier mods on my class items, just because it's easy to remember where they are. So I always keep them in the same order on all of my characters: Hive, Fallen, and then Taken. So I could just swap to this real quick and be like, okay, I'm going to put on Taken Barrier, and then I'm going to run that until I run out of Heavy, and then I'll swap back to Taken Armaments, and so on. It's nice to have. I would recommend going and trying to get these if you can. And I actually made a video about that recently if you want to check that out. How anybody can get these. Very clickbaity. So anyway, yeah, that's going to do it for this video, guys. Those are my Warlock builds. That is what I run on my Warlock. The only thing that I did not mention is that I will run Kindled Orchid in place of this, I think. I don't know if I mentioned that or not, but whatever. Here we are, end of the video. If you enjoyed it, click like. If you're new to the channel, click If you enjoyed the video, click like. If you're new to the channel, click subscribe. And if you are already subscribed, I fucking love you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and take care.